All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to unpack what is arguably one of the most captivating mysteries out there. We're going to use real historical records and hard geographical facts to unravel a totally mind-bending story. We're looking at how an entire, incredibly prosperous civilization just seemingly vanished into thin air. We're talking about Kuldhara, famously known as India's ghost village. So I really want you to picture this. Imagine the completely desolate Thar Desert in Rajasthan, India. Now ask yourself, how on earth did 80,000 people spread out across 84 separate villages just disappear in a single night? I know, it literally sounds like a movie script, but this is a very real place. For 2 centuries now, Kuldhara has sat completely abandoned. We're talking about a sprawling network of over 400 houses, streets, temples, wells, the whole shebang, but completely devoid of human life. The legend says they abandoned it in one fell swoop, almost as if someone just pressed a button and wiped out a massive community. And well, what fills an empty village? Ghost stories, right? The sheer terror people report experiencing out there is seriously chilling. Eyewitnesses have even claimed to see headless apparitions. People visiting the ruins report hearing women screaming, the jingling of heavy jewelry, and even old flour mills running. In the absolute middle of a barren wasteland, visitors swear they can smell food being cooked. And paranormal investigators? They've reported sudden, dramatic temperature drops down to -2 degrees Celsius. Which brings us to a highly publicized paranormal investigation from back in 2013. Picture being out there at 2 a.m. in a village where no human has lived for 2 centuries. The investigators suddenly found the fresh handprints of a 4 to 5-year-old child pressed right into the dust of their cars. And it gets weirder. When a journalist arrived later, those exact same prints appeared on their vehicle too. It's exactly this kind of chilling detail that earns Kuldhara the title of India's most haunted village. But to really understand the ghosts here, we first have to understand the actual monsters of history. That brings us to Section 1, the legend of the Diwan. So this is the accepted folklore that's been passed down for generations. The whole thing hinges on this one crucial figure, Diwan Salim Singh. He was the Prime Minister of Jaisalmer back in the early 1800s, and his story is heavily rooted in historical fact and tragedy. See, he watched his own father get murdered when he was just 11 years old, and that trauma seemed to fuel a lifelong, ruthless quest for power. He was incredibly cruel, literally killing anyone who disobeyed him. Through brutal extortion, he amassed a fortune of 20 million rupees. To put that into perspective, that was a practically unthinkable amount of money for that era. He became so powerful, he made the actual king a mere puppet. And then, as the folklore goes, he set his sights on the Kuldhara village chief's daughter. He gave them a terrifying ultimatum: hand her over in one day or he'd kill everyone in the village. Faced with that, the Paliwal Brahmins of Kuldhara made a shocking choice. According to the legend, on July 29, 1825, instead of surrendering the girl or trying to fight a losing battle against the Diwan's army, the residents of all 84 villages coordinated a massive exodus in total, absolute silence. They abandoned 600-year-old homes, leaving behind literally everything they had built. And, supposedly, they laid a dark curse on the land as they walked away, swearing no one would ever be able to live there again. Now, that is a fantastic, highly cinematic legend, but let's shift gears for a second and look at the incredibly well-documented historical reality of who these people actually were. Moving right along to Section 2, the historical oasis. So how do you even survive in a desert where summer temperatures routinely hit 50 degrees Celsius? Well, the Paliwal Brahmins were brilliant. They invented a revolutionary water harvesting technique called the Kadeen system. First, they used the natural slopes of the hills to funnel whatever scarce rainwater they got down into a specific valley. Over several months, this pulled water would slowly seep deep into the ground. Then, when winter hit, the surface water evaporated, leaving behind this incredibly nutrient-rich, fertile soil. It was honestly like farming rice in the Sahara Desert. Against all odds, they managed to grow 2 crops a year in a totally hostile wasteland. Get this though, they weren't just farmers. Kuldhara was a massive hub for trade and banking. Because they were located right on the vital Jaisalmer-Sindh trade route, the Paliwal Brahmins accumulated immense wealth. At one point, this remote village in the middle of nowhere was actually more prosperous than the city of Jaisalmer itself. They literally held more wealth than the local kings, and that just makes the mystery even deeper, doesn't it? Why would a community this incredibly rich and established just up and abandon absolutely everything overnight? Let's dig into that in Section 3, Uncovering the Historical Truth. Okay, time to bust some myths and use actual geological records to see what really went down. First up, the scientific attempt to explain the ruins. A 2017 study theorized that a massive earthquake destroyed the supposedly poorly built houses, burying the residents and claiming the whole Exodus thing was just a myth made up later to explain the tragedy. Sounds plausible, right? Well, a 2018 rebuttal completely dismantled that idea. Historical records show absolutely zero earthquakes around the alleged 1825 migration. The closest quakes on record were in 1819 and 1905. On top of that, neighboring non-Polywell villages showed zero damage, and as we know, earthquakes don't exactly pick and choose which demographics they hit. But the most convincing proof? If you walk through Kuldhara today, the stone walls of the ruins are still perfectly aligned and touching. An earthquake would have definitely left massive cracks and gaps. So, if it wasn't an earthquake and it wasn't a sudden dramatic flight into the night to protect a chief's daughter, what was it? Well, according to the research of Professor Syed Ali Nadim Razavi, it was essentially a perfect storm of misery. First up, climate change. The nearby Kak River and the local wells had completely dried up by 1815. Without that water, their brilliant cotton farming system totally collapsed. As their agricultural and trade income plummeted, Diwan Salim Singh didn't step in to help. Instead, he slapped them with oppressive tax hikes. And with no security left, local bandits started raiding the villages, tragically kidnapping women for ransom. What's truly fascinating here is how the historical data completely shatters the whole overnight disappearance myth. We have this straight from British officer Colonel James Todd's 1829 records. Look at this timeline. At its absolute peak, Kuldhara had roughly 1,588 residents. But by 1815, which is a full decade before the legendary 1825 disappearance, the population had already been slashed in half, down to 800, mostly driven out by the crippling drought and taxes. And look at that bottom date. In 1890, which is 65 years after the village supposedly vanished overnight, there were still 37 people on record living there. So this wasn't some magical overnight vanishing act. It was a slow, agonizing migration over several decades to safer places like Jodhpur. The actual history is firmly grounded in mundane, tragic reality. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, the real reason for ghosts. So, you're probably wondering if the real history is just about drought and taxes. Why do modern visitors experience so much terrifying paranormal activity? The answer really starts with human psychology, specifically a little thing called confirmation bias. When tourists go to Kuldhara today, they are heavily primed. Every website, tour guide, and local tells them they're entering India's most haunted village. Because they already believe they're walking into a ghost town, their brains actively search for proof to validate that belief. Simply put, if you expect to see a ghost, you're going to find one. And you pair that right up with another fascinating psychological phenomenon, pareidolia. This is where our brains frantically try to find familiar patterns in completely random things. So when the desert wind howls through those abandoned stone structures, a terrified, biased brain doesn't just hear wind, it processes it as a screaming woman. A faulty motion sensor on a ghost hunter's tool isn't just a technical glitch. To them, it's a spirit. We see faces in the shadows simply because our brains are hardwired to look for them. But here is the ultimate twist. And it is honestly a brilliant piece of historical irony. Those ghost stories weren't just accidental psychology. They were a deliberate smokescreen created by actual human thieves. When the wealthy Palawal Brahmins migrated, rumors naturally spread that they left behind hidden gold and silver in the ruins. Local thieves obviously wanted to dig it up, but they needed to make absolutely sure no one would wander into the ruins at night and catch them in the act. So what did they do? They intentionally spread terrifying ghost stories to keep the public scared and far away. And this isn't just a fun theory. We have concrete, modern proof from a documented incident back in 1998. A local watchman named Sumer Ram, who was actually living in the ruins, spotted some Dutch and German tourists sneaking around in the dead of night. And guess what? They weren't ghost hunting. They were using metal detectors. They actually found and dug up buried gold and silver coins. Sumer Ram called the cops, the treasure hunters were arrested, and that physical evidence is still sitting in the Jaisalmer court today. This incident proved once and for all that the real bumps in the night were just looters. It actually prompted the government to finally step up and build a boundary wall around the site. Now wait, what about that super creepy hook from the beginning of our explainer? The child's handprints magically appearing at 2 a.m.? Well, turns out there is a completely 100% logical explanation for that too. Just 4 kilometers away from Kuldhara is a perfectly normal, fully inhabited village. Kids from that village frequently wander over to play in the ruins during the day, and local herders pass through with their animals all the time. Finding the dusty prints of a child on a car in a local tourist spot isn't supernatural at all, it's just entirely natural. So I really want you to think about this question as we wrap up. Are the real monsters of history just human greed? When you peel back all the spooky layers of the Kuldahara myth, you don't find ghosts, and you don't find ancient curses. What you find is a brilliant, thriving community that was destroyed by a very real climate crisis, exploited by an incredibly greedy dictator in Diwan Salim Singh, and later manipulated by modern thieves hunting for buried treasure. The true story of Kuldahara reminds us that reality is honestly way more fascinating and frankly, sometimes far scarier than fiction. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this inspires you to always look just a little bit deeper into the legends we tell.